Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something big, a really powerful new way of thinking about early childhood education, and we're looking at it through the lens of what's happening in Chile. We're going to explore how the job of an educator is changing from being just a language teacher to becoming a truly vital intercultural guide. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. For so long, the focus was all about getting the grammar right, linguistic accuracy. But our role is evolving, big time. We're being called to become mediators, building bridges not just between languages, but between this whole complex world of cultural and even neurological differences. It's all about human connection, really. And why? Well, because the reality is our classrooms today are these incredibly vibrant, buzzing hubs of multiculturalism and neurodiversity. This is not the classroom from 20 years ago. The old tools, the old ways of thinking, they just don't cut it anymore. We absolutely need a new set of skills for this new reality. So the big question is, where do we even start? Well, lucky for us, we have a foundation. We're going to ground ourselves in Michael Byram's model of intercultural communicative competence. You can think of it as our map for navigating this new and, honestly, really exciting territory. You see, Byram's whole point was that just being fluent, just knowing the words, it's not enough. Real communication needs what he called ICC. It's the skill to understand and navigate all the human and cultural stuff that's happening behind the words. It's about being a mediator between different ways of seeing the world. Now, this is where it gets really useful. Byram breaks this whole big idea down into 5 key skills, the savoir-être, or ways of knowing. Think of these as the essential gears in our professional toolkit. It starts with savoir-être, which is all about our attitude, being curious, being open, and it goes all the way to savoir s'engager, which is our ability to think critically about culture, including our own. Okay, so if Byram's model is our map, what we need next is a mirror. We need a way to look at our own practice and ask, where am I on this journey? And for that, we're going to turn to Mitchell Hammer's fantastic tool, the Intercultural Development Inventory. What Hammer gives us is this really powerful visual, a continuum. It basically shows the journey we're all on, moving from a monocultural mindset, where we pretty much only see the world through our own lens, to an intercultural mindset, where we can genuinely shift our perspective and see through others' eyes. So this continuum, it maps out how we tend to react to cultural difference. On one end, you have these monocultural mindsets, like denial, which is basically ignoring difference, and polarization, that classic us versus them thinking. The goal, of course, is to move along the path towards acceptance and the real sweet spot, adaptation. But hold on. Let's pause right here in the middle on this stage called minimization. This is so important because this is where most of us in education land. It feels good, right? It's the deep down, we're all the same idea. But it can be a trap. By focusing only on what we have in common, we can accidentally erase the very real, deep differences that need us to actually adapt our teaching. And here's the kicker. Hammer's research found this thing he calls the orientation gap. Basically, most of us think we're way further along this continuum than we actually are. We might feel like we're in adaptation, but our actions and assumptions are still stuck back in minimization. And just knowing that gap exists, that self-awareness, that's the first huge step toward real growth. Now, closing that gap, it isn't just a nice idea or a professional development goal. In a place like Chile, this shift in mindset is now a legal and ethical mandate. It's not a suggestion, it's a requirement. You've got 2 key laws, the inclusion law and the autism law, that legally require us to change our approach. They force us to completely rethink and redefine who the other is in our classrooms. It's not just about a child who comes from a different country anymore. And here's where it gets really profound. We have to start seeing neurodiversity as its own kind of cultural framework. An autistic student, with their totally unique way of processing the world, needs the exact same intercultural skills from us, that savoir-être, that ability to decenter our own perspective, as a student who just arrived from another country. The encounter itself is inherently intercultural. Okay, so enough theory. What does this actually look like in the real world? Let's get practical. How do we take all this and apply it in our daily classroom routines? How do we act like an intercultural mediator? This one question right here, this is the absolute heart of the mediator's role. It's like a switch flips in our brain. It moves us away from judgment, this child is being difficult, and toward curiosity and discovery. It makes us use our savoir-apprendre skills to figure out what's really going on beneath the surface. Let me give you a perfect, super concrete example: the morning reading circle. The normal way, right, is for every child to make eye contact and say hello. But the intercultural mediator stops and asks, hang on, is that norm truly inclusive? Because for a child whose culture sees direct eye contact as disrespectful, or for an autistic child who finds it painfully overwhelming, that norm is actually a barrier. So the adaptation is simple, but it's profound. You offer multiple ways to greet: a wave, a smile, pointing to a card. You respect every child's communication code. And this is what it's all about. This is the goal we're working toward. We are becoming architects of what's called a third space in our classroom, a unique co-created environment where every single child feels seen, feels understood, feels valued, and knows deep in their bones that they belong. So if there's one thing to take away, it's that our job description has gotten so much bigger and so much more important. We are not just teaching English vocabulary. We are laying the foundational bricks for a more empathetic, a more equitable society. We're building a space where every child feels they have a legitimate place, not just in the classroom, but in the world. I want to leave you with this final thought, a question to really reflect on. When you go back to your work, think about this. In your classroom, in your daily interactions, what is one wall, one assumption, one rigid rule that you can turn into a window? A window that opens up a whole new perspective for a child in your care. Because that is the real work of the intercultural mediator.